This lady, we're not going to be long introductions, but this lady is combines being a fearsome negotiator with a real warmth, and has transcended being a small brand and still have that attitude with being as part of a huge multinational group. Not many people do that well. So that's why I'm particularly interested. And David, despite, you started running, how many salons you had? I had 5 salons and 1 big spa. So he started as a salon owner, built up Declior as one of the largest brands in the UK at the time, and you were their largest market, sold it, and now started his own brand. So we'll go in. So, and Farah, you're going to tell us your story as well.
So my background is as a scientist. Spotted a gap in the market, created a line of colour cosmetics. I fundamentally felt there was a gap to re-look at the science of pigments in foundations. Started as a bedroom business, and I was just lucky. It just got picked up by a bunch of Hollywood celebrities, and I think that just really blew the brand up. We then ended up rolling out nationally across Superdrug, and some of the large retail groups. And grew the brand quite successfully. I've just stepped away from it now. But yeah, it's been an amazing journey.
I'm going to start, David, running your salons. What drove you to launch your own business?
Well, actually, I owned health clubs. And in the health clubs, I had, in fact, beauty. I started my first health club in 1968. I've always believed in well-being, and I saw the product, the company Declior, in 1971, and I liked the concept of natural products. And I joined the company in respect and saying that I would like to be their distributor. I was. And it took me time to understand the passion that you would need to make a successful business. You have to have passion and understand exactly the area you want to target. So we targeted. Do you want me to carry on, or
yeah?
You sure?
When you get too much, we'll butt in. Don't worry.
Okay. All right. So I wanted to target to start off with the beauty sector. I started off by realizing I had to make a profit at anything I do. And one of the most important things is that to keep your expenditure down. I started off not with salespeople. I was a salesperson to begin with. I opened the first 27 accounts, and after that, I hired agents. And after those agents, I had round about 12 agents around the country. When we got to a certain turnover, then of course I had to drop the agents and have my own team. And eventually, we opened over 1,000, which actually was 1,200 spas and salons in the UK. And I went into Harrods, Selfridges, John Lewis Partnerships, House of Fraser, QVC. We were actually the first company on QVC. There was a lady called Lorna McKnight, who was in fact who was the buyer for Harrods. She joined QVC. She said to me, David, can we launch your products? I said, if I launch on QVC, it could kill the brand, because I'm in so many of the salons. But we said, well, why don't we do something different? And I said, let's call something called In Salon with Declior, where we have a therapist there and people ask questions. And so that was the birth. And after that, we built the company up. I was part of the international team, by the way. I used to always talk about, I was the first person to always have 70 countries, and I explained to people how to run the company, how we would run the company, and how we give them advice.
So can I butt in on QVC, because I hear a lot from salons, they sometimes moan, but what would you say to a salon
moaning about, oh, they're on QVC, they're selling it on QVC?
It's different because we didn't discount in those days. So there's no, in the early days of QVC, there was no discounting. I would not go to, I don't believe in discounting. That's my own personal view, because you're taking away from the salmon, they can't compete.
So you would argue then, without putting, that you were publicising the brand, growing the brand for them, and not taking a business away from them.
Correct.
Noella, what would you say? Because Elemis has been on QVC.
Oh, there you go. That's a six-marker question, isn't it? Well, we celebrated being on QVC, especially in the pandemic, because one thing QVC allowed you to do was to get into people's living rooms, right? And more importantly, who was sitting on the couch with mother was daughter as well. So it gave us an opportunity to really expand the brand into a whole new demographic. And we really went for that. Now, we're an advocate of QVC. We are an advocate of running an omni-channel brand as well. And I'll just put it out there because I think everyone has an omni-channel shopper. You have an omni-channel consumer. She's going on digital, she's going into retail, she's having a beautiful service in spa, and don't underestimate the value of the spa journey in all of this. And secondly, she will be sitting at home and shopping. So it is, we can't deny that today. And there I mentioned the word Amazon as well, and I'll put it out there as well for debate. Because whether we like it or not, we're all on there. So that's the world, the new world we're all in today. And guys, it's incredibly exciting.
So what drove you to launch the brand, Farah? What drove you to launch the brand?
I would say that it was very much started by a need. I grew up with sensitive skin. I mean, this is going way back. You know, I was always getting blemishes, and I could never quite get the right foundation. And I also always felt that the foundations that were available were always available in the premium sector. So it was all the sort of luxury brands, but there was nothing sort of for my skin tone. And it wasn't really just about my skin. It was actually anybody with what I say a yellow undertone to their skin. That seemed to be the issue. And so what I did, I went off to Italy. I was literally driving around the whole province of Lombardy. I think I must have been doing genuinely about a couple 100 miles a day sometimes, just going around meeting all the factories. And I started to rethink the science of the pigments. I felt that brands were just not quite nailing certain undertones in skin. And I suppose that's where it really began. So I then launched that product with just 5 SKUs. We started on Look Fantastic. We also did QVC as well eventually. But those 5 SKUs went on to outsell pretty much everything at one point on Look Fantastic, which was amazing. And so LF became really supportive of the brand, which was incredible. I think then we were just on this it was a very interesting time. It was around sort of, I would say, 2016, and the world of YouTube had just sort of started. And we started getting these large influencers, and this was in the days when it was all organic and not paid for, using the products. And that just really, I think, at one point, I think we were the most talked about brand on YouTube, which is incredible. That really helped us not having the same budgets as other brands did. I mean, we'd raised capital. And then at that point, simultaneously, it got into the hands of various celebrities. And it was really, I suppose it was when Adele used it at the Brit Awards when she made a comeback for Hello. And I think that blew up because we had bright orange packaging, and that was seen on the dressing tables and on our Instagram. And I think we just became known as this £12.50 foundation that was being used by all these sort of celebrities. I mean, that did become quite difficult in the pandemic, I have to say, because everybody was clapping for the NHS and nobody cared about celebrities, and that was kind of our go-to sort of marketing strategy. And it was great because we were not paying these celebrities. So that we were really, really lucky that we had a very close relationship. We were allowed to go in their dressing rooms and get backstage when they were doing events and things like that. So yes, it's not something that I planned, but I'd say that was kind of pretty much our journey.
And a lot of people in this room know you look fantastic. What would you advise anybody as a brand in terms of dealing with them? What would you?
Yeah.
People are debating whether to be on their
what do people aspire to be on there? What would you, any tips if I'm a brand for me starting out and dealing with Look Fantastic?
I would say, online. I mean, Superdrug was our main partner, I would say, in the end. But Look Fantastic, I had a brilliant experience with them. I started with them very early when they were also at a growth phase. So it was really interesting seeing their growth. They opened up a US warehouse while I was there. And I would say that it's always good to partner with companies that can give you a lot more reach than you can probably get yourself. I would say don't put all your eggs in that one basket. Perhaps looking back, I should have built my D2C out myself faster from a margin perspective, which I didn't do. I think I was so into getting other retailers on board. And I think I was doing that because I was thinking, well, it just gives us aspirational value. Oh, look, we're on this great platform and it makes us more credible. And I don't think I had the confidence as a brand, even though we were being used by all these amazing celebrities, to sort of do the D2C thing ourselves. And I think that, in hindsight, I think I should have done differently. But I would say definitely, absolutely, I think it's important to partner with these brands because they will give you, you can do partnerships with them. I mean, they're not always successful, but if you get the right partnerships with those brands, I think they're very, very successful. So if it wasn't for LF, I think we wouldn't have maybe blown up the way that we did. We wouldn't have got international penetration the way that we did. So,
Stepping back a bit, Noella, you've been with Elemis on the whole journey, pretty much the whole journey.
Very young when I started, okay. Just putting it out there.
Did you ever tell us a bit about that and tell us, did you ever envisage it would be as big as it has become?
Oh, Mark, yeah, 35 years on. Can you believe that? Yes, and our go-to-market, believe it or not, was a professional beauty show. Here, put your hands up, okay? Which is why we're here today. This platform helped us build the brand when we had no budget whatsoever. I've navigated and journeyed through 4 owners. We started with a private owner who really had very little knowledge on the industry, just a little idea and a lot of money. I met her first in 1989. I was actually running the beauty department in Harvey Nichols at the time, and a phone call went at 8:20 in the evening, and I said, will I answer, won't I? Always answers those 8:20 phone calls on a Thursday evening, because that was the beginning of this journey. And I was asked, would I like to brainstorm an idea? Would I help bring something to market? A year later, Sean Harrington, our CEO, joined, and then Oriel, the third co-founder, joined a year later. Now, we were naive, we were young, but one thing that's never wavered was the resilience, the, I would say, uncompromising energy, and that uncompromising, and there's one thing none of us have mentioned here, but it is the fundamental key to success. You've got to have a great product, right? Bottom line. You'll get mileage for a while, but what brings that client back over and over again, that growth in that loyalty. We couldn't fund any social media. We didn't have the budget, but we had to work great relationships. We didn't even have a sample, but Sean, we gave out more product, I think, than we sold. Because the way we got product out there was into people's hands. And today, we still, to this day, if we're ever for a meeting, it's call me old school, the first thing I'll pack is a goodie bag. I watch Sean do exactly the same. Now, the others behind don't do it, but to us, it's about the product comes first. The journey started in spa and salon. It was the key way of getting as many eyeballs on the brand as possible. Now, we leaned into the key strengths here. Sean had a history, and his past was in spa. Mine was, I came into this brand as an aromatherapist. I came in as a beauty therapist, and probably a good old head for numbers and, a good negotiator. Oriel came in with the storytelling and the marketing. There were 3 key strengths. We didn't know it at the time, really, but suddenly there was a space for all 3 to really lean into. We are still today a treatment-led product brand. We are still today, we believe in touching skin, whether it's 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, or the luxury of 2 or 3 hours in that incredible decadent space of these beautiful spas, which is our biggest conversion. We've just, I'll make this point here, we've just completed a consultant big external survey and analysis on the brand. And the one thing that comes through all the time is, I fell in love with the brand in a spa. I fell in love with the brand in the spa thousands of miles away. So don't underestimate the strength of that. It is the backbone to our brand. And even today, and it's a celebration, this week we launched into Sephora US. What a fantastic cherry on the cake, right? You can't launch into something like that without really knowing what your brand represents. What's the space you're filling? I will put that out in the room. What's your niche? What are you bringing to this space? Define it. Get a blank sheet of paper. Never waver from it. Stay true to the DNA of the brand. There are times when you just put your head in your hands and think, oh my God, what am I doing here? But the truth of that is what resonates today. Authenticity. That is the biggest buzzword today. Relatability and authenticity. I want to see something that could be me. I could use that. My skin could look like that. And I think it's been a real journey. I'm still living it. I don't like talking about it in the past because I'm living it still, Mark, and I'm still loving it and learning all day, every day. But it's been a labor of incredible love. You know, it's been a lifetime commitment for all three of us, and we're still here telling the story. So it's a good one.
Thank you.
Just on that one, Noella, so you talk about authenticity and staying true to the cause that you created 35 years ago. But in today's really competitive environment where there's products launching every day and filling every gap, do you still feel that there's that gap which you saw 35 years ago and you can still stay true to the cause, or do you have to change for the times?
We were very lucky, and it's a great question. We were very lucky. We launched a lifestyle concept in 1989, 1990. Because, and I would honestly take my hat off to Sean Harrington because he backed it, okay? Because I believe that there was no point in treating the spot on your nose. I still believe it today. I believe today that every one of your skins reflect the choices you made yesterday. That's wellness. That's well-being. That's now. It's relevant now today. So to your answer is, we stood on a big concept. We stood on a big commitment to education. Because there's not much point having a concept if you're not committed to educating it. And our education is still that real backbone. It's the biggest investment we've had this year, actually, in the whole brand. It's education. Bringing it relevant, bringing it now, bringing it into every single channel, bringing it across every single demographic. Don't underestimate that. You have to stay very true to that. So, yeah, I think our strength was big concept, never wavered, committed to it, and educated, and continue to educate it.
I think we'll move on to one for our next. It's never easy running a business, let alone scaling it. Right? And there's sometimes, I know Noella was talking about, they stay true to their commitment, true to the cause, all the way through, and that's part of the journey they're going to go through the next 35 plus years as well. But there's always decisions we have to make when running a business that you have an idea, you have an ideal, but as time goes on, things change. You think, we've got to pivot here, we've got to do something different. So have you had those kind of moments where you think...
Let me explain. Knowing the business so well, I realized less is more. For me, the reason I agree with everything Noella said, you've got to have passion in the brand. I understand skincare, and I understand products very well. Charles Revson said, we manufacture cosmetics and we sell hope. We're in the hope business. Let's be realistic. But I decided less is more. We have 8 products that for all skin types, all types. I realize you don't want to have too many products. It's my thought. I wanted something that works. I want something that's easy for salons to buy into. I want something that therapists can understand easily. And I wanted something that, in fact, is going to make money and it has good margins. Now, all of these things, it takes time to learn. I agree with everything that Noella says, everything. But their brand is large. It's a very large brand, like all of the brands. I know the owners of Lieber, I know the Clarins, I know all of those companies. I know them very well. And I know, and I learned of all the mistakes they've made. And I realize that less is more. Give quality. I agree with everything Noella says. You've got to have passion behind the brand. And the clients have got to enjoy it, and it's got to work. Look, I'm nearly 80 years of age. I'm still fit. Do you know about microbiome? It's all about the microbiome and how we live our life. That's important.
You've had such a wealth of experience. What was the tipping point? When you were running Dexter particularly, what was that tipping point of success?
It's exactly what Noella said. He said, you know, we were in earlier than we were in the salons, and in actually 1979. So in fact, in my own locations in 1968. So I had an advantage then, and I had a team of people. And I agree with everything that has been said, that you have to in fact engage with the salon industry or spas. And that's so important because those people who have been to the salons and spas talk and they know from their experience how good the product is or how the treatment is. Look, we're on the stage here with three different people. All three people have had a big success in their life. And they've all done it in a certain way, but actually it's the same way. And this is what I personally believe in, is that if you want a success, whoever you are, whichever country you're in, you've got to get to your clientele. And how do you do that? And that's the secret. For me today, you've got to be smart. And you've got to understand how to connect to this incredible amount of people who are trying to sell products. And you've got to get ahead of the game. And how do you do that? And that is another story altogether.
You're not going to share that secret?
No, I can, sir. I've already told you. Less is more. Less is more. Look, I'm very lucky. My wife is a nutritionist. So therefore, nutrition, let's be realistic, is everything about well-being.
Barge in here.
Go on.
You were the distributor, not the brand owner.
No, correct. I wish I was the brand owner.
That causes tension. That's part of the reason why we started this conference. What would you advise as the distributor, and what would you do differently in your relationship?
I wouldn't. I made sure I got a 10-year contract. I would not, they had to give me a 10-year contract. And I said, I am not going to invest in your company unless you give me a 10-year contract. They said, oh, David, it is not possible to have a 10-year contract. In the European law, it is not possible. But of course, it is, because I had the power. Sorry, gentlemen.
Sorry to interrupt, but I want to engage in questions. In this 10-year contract, did you have performance clauses?
Of course. Of course you have to have performance.
This was back in the 70s, early 80s?
Actually, the 10-year contract started from 1981 for me. And I'll answer your question. Every year on the international meetings, we used to say, what is your target? And I used to say, for example, in those days, okay, we're going to do 5 million a year. And that was, and then the next year I'd say, we're going to do 9 million a year. And the next year I'd say, we're going to do 12 million a year. Next year I'd say, we're going to do 14 million a year. Next year I'd say, we're doing 16 million a year. I hit every target. Every single target.
So it would be a different discussion if you hadn't hit those targets?
Of course it would. Of course it would. They're business people. Of course it would.
Noella, if I'm in Norway, I don't know if you have a distributor in Norway. I picked Norway. Would you give me a 10-year contract in Norway? Or a market you don't have?
No. I mean, we have every model. We have D2C, we have distribution. I mean, we believe we have met, the mixed model works, there is no doubt about that. And I think all of these partnerships, and to all your questions earlier as well, Mark, you have to manage all of these relationships. You know, the question even about look fantastic and all, every one of them have to be managed. And I would say, and you introduced me as a fiercely negotiator, they have to be managed fiercely. I would honestly, really, really, and it's a real partnership. Just handing a brand to anyone today is not going to work. It's like, you know, putting a brand on the shelf and walking away isn't going to work. It's what I say to every spa we go into today. Just merchandising it there and walking away is absolutely not going to change their business. But working together, understanding who their consumer really is. Who is the client? What is she buying? What's bringing her here? It's the same with distributors. We're educating them today on that omni-channel distribution. And not just spa, then retail, then e-commerce, then building out your own website. All of that is the new world we're living in. So yes, I would give a distributor contract to anyone, but they would have to work with us on an omni-channel distribution.
Before I pass on to Farah, you've changed from a private owner to an owner that was on the stock market to private equity backed, from a relatively small business to a multi-billion owner. What would you, as somebody Noella runs the business, she is CEO, what would you advise any budding CEOs here in that transition and how to deal with those different types of owners? I think you're unusual in many in the professional sectors that you've dealt with a whole level of different people. Is there any specific advice you'd give to the younger Noella? Don't work so hard.
Oh my God. I wish I had the wisdom 35 years ago that I have today. I also wish I had the confidence that I have today. And you don't, be kind and be nice and respect the relationships. But I think I would also trust my gut a little bit more. I think it's a really good barometer. If I walk away today, and sometimes the commercials might work, and if it doesn't feel right, we don't go there today. It's a very interesting. We've done many ones. We've always did it, even though when we needed that business and we needed the growth. I think we would sit down, all three of us, and discuss it and say, no, it doesn't feel right. And I think that gut feeling, because you can't, every move you make building a brand is really key. You can't go back. I always say to people, start as you mean to go on if you can. Hold tight. Don't go there if it doesn't feel right, because coming back from it is really difficult. It's really hard. And I thank for my gut, and I have learned a hell of a lot during the time. And we talk about failures. It was a question that was asked, and I was just thinking about it last night, and I was thinking, God, everyone must have failed out there developing something. And I was just looking at Sir James Dyson. He had 5,124 prototypes before he launched his bestseller. So I rest my case. Okay.
Good learning. Farah, if you could go take the clock back, what would you do differently?
I think looking back, I was very lucky in terms of raising capital. The first round was quite difficult. It was the tiny little seed round. That was actually fundamentally, it's odd, it was the smallest but the hardest, I think, because you have nothing, to show anybody. Even though I had incredible investors, I feel like maybe selecting people with slightly more of a dual purpose who brought something that had some experience in cosmetics. So I feel that, creating a board, that was adding value at the earlier stage, I think would have been helpful. But I think, looking back, I think some of the mistakes that I made, and it sounds, without sounding sort of arrogant. I don't think it's about arrogance. I think it's coming back to, Noella, what you were saying about really, really going with gut feeling. I think a lot of times I would hire, expensive consultants, or I would have brilliant employees that I really respected. I've always believed in opening the room up and getting advice, but I think at the end of the day, you have to live with that decision. And I think there were times when I hired some brilliant people that came from some incredible companies that I wanted to give them the autonomy to make the final decision, and I did, knowing full well that it didn't feel right to me. And yes, we lost a lot of money at times on certain decisions, and I think that really consolidated that I needed to sort of take advice, but make sure that it has to feel right to you. And I also think that one of the other things is when you do get pressure, again, Noella, to your point, I agree with so much of what you said, that you have to stay true to, what you created. You've got to really, otherwise what are you believing in? If it's created by somebody else, or, there's a lot of other influence in there that you don't completely support, then I think it's harder to believe in something and keep pushing it. And so I had that with retail partners when they would put pressure to reshape. Either it could be taking a partner that reshapes your demographic or reshapes the way you do your branding, or they limit what you can say in terms of your brand tone of voice. And I think there are lots of times where you have to sort of really balance, okay, am I going to adapt? Or am I going to, tweak, or am I just going to walk away from this? And I think that sometimes, yes, I think it's easy again to cave to pressure. And I think thankfully I didn't do too much of that. I wanted to stay true to my brand. But I think there was a lot of pressure on me to say, open it up to a wider demographic. Like, you could capture, older people and much younger people. And I think that that would have been a mistake. So I never did that.
We're in a new world. We're in a world of influencers. We're in a world where, you have to communicate by phone. 80% of all sales on the retail is done by your phone. We all know today that everything that we do, everything's communicated. How are you going to get your product in front of the consumer? Of course, we've discussed initially through salons and spas, which is great, and that will be fundamental for us. But at the same time, we're in a new world. How do you get to that new world? And, one of the most important things for me to learn was through COVID. I launched what I call slow. The reason why I call it slow, by the way, is because I don't think anti-aging is a real name, because it's a misnomer for me personally. And I think that we age, and our age slows. It's making sure we look in good condition. But let's forget that. How do you get to the consumer? And that is really, for me, one of the biggest challenges today. How do you do it? And that, go on.
You have a huge experience and people you know have huge respect. What were your greatest products?
Oh, man. Today.
Apart from coming here this morning.
Don't say you didn't have a day.
Of course I did. Of course I did. I suppose my first wife. But apart from that, apart from I did many things wrong. Of course I have. But the same thing. One of the advantages I had, by the way, Mark and Noella, one of the advantages I had is I came from a background. Look, when I was young, I used to train 62 hours a week. I was a mad sportsman, crazy. And when I opened the health club, and I wanted then to have beauty areas, for some reason I wanted a beauty salon in there, and I wanted masseurs there, and I had that, going back right in the early days, and that taught me a lot.
So you have that understanding for your customers because you were one. Is that what
Correct.
So,
and
what you're saying, to paraphrase, is that know your customer.
Correct, totally, and I totally, and I've traveled. I love treatments myself. I've had treatments. I'm sure that all of you here, wherever you are, I've been in. If I go to China, I've been in China many times. I've been to in all over the world, having treatments. And that is how you learn as well. Because if you don't like it yourself, how are you expecting someone else to like it? So this is the way I feel about whatever I've done. I haven't made cock-ups. Yes, of course I have. Of course I have. Maybe I've made one now. I don't know. But I don't think so.
If there's any questions from the floor, so we've got about 5 minutes left. I mean, you know, you've got 5 minutes to ask. Great panel. Any questions for your own businesses? And while we're waiting for questions, Farah, I'll ask each of you as well that there would have been many moments on the entrepreneur journey where you want to, you know, points where you want to just give it up, thinking, bugger this is just not what I'm made for, and go and find something easier to do. What are those kind of points that you might have crossed in your life, and what kept you going? Because that's, you know, what Noella was saying. There's points where many of us give up, and you know, but there's points where you transcend that to become successful. So what were some of those points?
I think, if I'm honest, I don't think I can define one point where I'm sort of thinking, right, I want to pack it all in. I think when you're running an entrepreneurial business, you are having little points every day, and you're dealing with putting out fires almost on a daily basis. You also have a lot of highs. So I think the highs, and then you've got the sort of, I don't like calling them lows, but the challenges of running the business tend to sort of balance each other out quite a bit. And I always say you've got to just sort of hover in the middle somewhere. I'd never get too happy. I'd never get, you know, too sad, because otherwise you're just constantly, it's like a whirlwind of emotions. And so I think as the company grows, actually, you know, any problems that you have get bigger and bigger technically, right? Because there's more to lose. But by that point, I think you've already had so much experience in all those little problems, and you learn to sort of really believe in yourself. Actually, you think, do you know what? We got over it last time. We can fix it. I think it's all about having an attitude of, do you know what? Okay, yes, this is really tough. But that's when you come back to, okay, why am I doing this? And I think it is about, Noella, again, to your point, about having this almost unwavering belief in your product. I always say that sometimes people say we've got to believe in yourself. And I think, yes, easier said than done when you have imposter syndrome, like so many of us do. I think it's actually easier for me, at least anyway, to believe in the product that I created rather than myself, and just in myself, just thinking, well, I know that I have the ability to get it to where I want it to be. I might not be perfect, I might be bad at lots of things, but I know that I can do that thing. I know that I can get it from A to B, and I know what needs to be done. So I would say there was no point as such. I would definitely say that it was just about, you just get used to falling on the floor and getting back up. It's just part of daily life. And I would say that if that's not happening, you're not growing, actually. And that's a sign of growth. If you're doing the same thing every day, I'd be more worried about that.
Yeah, great. I mean, part of it is like, there's a Simon Sinek phrase called know your why. So it sounds like you've really got to know your why, whether it's yourself or the product. For sounds each of you talk about the product and what you want to deliver to your customers, the why that drives you. Yep.
Invest in something that you know is going to work for you. How do you do that? Look up someone who's done it before. Make sure that the person you talk to knows, has from experience how to guide you. I invest in people now. I want a young team. I want young people. I want young people to learn from my experience how to, in fact, sell that product, either if it's in salons or wherever. As Noella was saying, you've got to believe in your product. I think I've got a great product. Like Noella would say, she's got a great product. We all say that. And because we know our business very, very well. But if you're going to invest in something, you've got to make sure. My most important thing when I invested, apart from the product, was margin. If you don't have the margin, you have a big problem. Too many people go into a business thinking it's a lovely idea, but they don't get the margin right. Now, apart from me being in this business, I'm an investor as well. I've invested in companies. Sometimes I've lost hundreds of thousands. Sometimes I've made quite a few million. I have done that. But I've also believed in my own product. But all advice I will tell you now is invest in something that you have a gut feeling about, but the person that you're investing in, the people you're investing in, have experience. And when you talk to them, you feel that you're on the right road to success.
Excellent. In about an hour, we've actually got a whole session, which Glenn's in the room, talking about the price. And that is one of the most, I think, overlooked points of building a product. You build it, you put a price out there based on cost sometimes or what competitors are doing, but you don't build in the margin for your multi-channel strategy. So Glenn's going to be dissecting that very point in about an hour. Yeah. We'll just run through for Noella, just summarising what tips you would give to other entrepreneurs in the room to, to get to your levels of success.
Go for it. Have a dream. On really gut feeling, they do come true. And stay true to it. Just stay true to it. There were times when we thought we weren't going to make it. But, have a dream. Dreams do come true. They really do.
Gosh, I think I would say that if you are solving a problem, then I would say that rather than having, I believe in creating must-have products as opposed to just nice-to-have. And I think if you are solving a problem for somebody, then, and you feel that it relates to other people as well, then I think that that's definitely something that is worth developing.
Brilliant. Any questions before we wrap up? No?
My question is about launching products, whether it's just UK or Europe or globally. I'm looking to I'm going to be launching a brand in January 2025, and currently the aim is to just launch in the UK and Europe. But am I thinking too small, or do you, from your own experiences, do you do a global launch, or how wide or how big did you go?
To my fellow compatriot there, hello. Firstly, are you launching from Ireland or are you launching from the UK? From the UK. Are you? It's hard because is it a British brand? What's the concept of the brand? What's the story? Just without giving too much away.
Yeah, of course. It's a skincare brand specifically targeting pregnant women.
Oh, very niche.
Yes.
Yeah.
Being manufactured in the UK. I'll be setting up in Ireland as well.
And what channel? What are you going to? Are you D2C? Are you going to setting up your own website? Are you going to launch into spas?
I'm going to be launching D2C and hopefully into retailers as well. I want to launch with ideally a space retailer.
Yeah. I'm sure David will have a lot to say to this as well. Well, firstly, good luck to you. Okay, it's very niche, but there is a gap there. There is no doubt about that, because there was a few brands filling that, have vanished over COVID. So well done you. I actually would get it into somewhere where pregnant ladies come to be treated, to get it touched and feel, because there is always an element of caution around a product for pregnancy through the different trimesters. It's not an easy, space to fill, making sure you're dialing up the safety, but at the same time it's got to work. So I personally would get it into treatment, get it into somewhere where it can be applied safely, get the eyeballs on it, and you get that snowball. So spa for me first, I would, before retail, and then I would do retail. But you must do your D2C, and you must have your storytelling and your target audience. And is it young mums? I would probably is.
Target market is 28 to 35.
Oh, great. Well done you. Bravo. I'm delighted.
You can take that offline as well, actually, because we want to wrap up because we have a chock-a-block day today. We're already 5 minutes over. But I'm sure Noella's there as well for offline chatting as well.